So, good morning to all. For today's report, our report is about handling sales objection and closing the sales. So, at the end of our report, we learned these objectives. First is the principles of handling objections, techniques of handling resistance, when to close a sales, and timing of closing the sales. Process how salesmen close the sales and requisites of successful closing. And the last is the tactics and strategies to close the sale. We have the introduction. The information that prospects are providing to you is exactly what you need to address to keep transaction going ahead. And we have the 3 principles of common objections. The first objection, a process of clarifying value. Second objection, a process of facilitating understanding, and the last is the process of contextualizing meaning. In these slides, there are the reason for objections. The first is the negative psychological factors. It seems to be a natural human being to harbor some degree of resistance to anything presented to him. Second, to get rid of the salesman. Some prospects voice numerous objections is an attempt to dismiss the salesman. The prospect may not have sufficient time to devote to the interview. The third, lack of money. It is the person who have to buy have been classified as suspect when the prospect declares that. Fourth is the product or service not needed. This is also another valid objection. Suppose the product needs electric current to operate it, or there is no electricity in the area. Obviously, the prospect can't use the product. And for the fifth, need not recognize. The salesman may encounter objections such as, my business is different, or I have no house for your service. House? And the fifth, need not recognize. The salesman may encounter objections such as, my business is different, or I have no use for your service. If the salesman has qualified his prospect and those objections have been reached, then the salesman has failed to convince a prospect that a need exists. And for the number 6, desire for more information. Some buyers of objection in an attempt to secure more information from the salesman. For the number 7, habit or costume. Buyer's objection are not limited to objection which are legitimate and which cannot be overcome. Individuals are creators of habits. And the last is the value not equal to sacrifice. It is the most buyer must sacrifice in order to buy. The money spent for the product offered is not available for other expenditures. So the next is there are some illustrations of the different types of objections. The first is the price objection. Regardless of this price asked for a product, someone will object that the price is too high or out of line or not too low as they are offered by a competitor. So here's like an example. So for the comment, 70,000 pesos is too much amount of money for that gas range. So the solution, always build up as early as possible a large mass of value against which the product which the prospects can measure the price. For the salesman, you will enjoy using this range for at least 10 years. It means that the cost. And for the techniques, spread cost of products over its life to you is modest sum of 146 pesos for 1 week. The second is the product objection. An objection of any sort can really expected from the prospect. He may say the design is not good or the color is not in, and the quality is inferior and others. So for the comment, don't think that the vacuum cleaner can do the cleaning job. It's too small. The solution is in the case of the vacuum cleaner, the prospect will surely want to see how it performs the cleaning job. Logical proof is on how the product works is the practical approach, which is very effective. Seeing is believing. So the techniques is demonstrate the product to the prospects. The salesman start cleaning the floor areas, show how the machine is operated, and so on. So the third is the company objection. So the comment is, haven't heard of this company yet, is the new in the industry. So for the solution, this situation is usually handled with a diverted move instead of emphasizing the newness of the company. A salesman may ask a question that may divert the prospect's attention. So for the techniques, questions, salesmen are not successful industries started from a beginning. So, and the last is the objection to acting new. So comment, I need that product but I am not ready to buy it now. So for the solution of this, if the salesman has qualified his product, he has a way of detecting the real reason for not acting new. The reason may be the price, terms of payment, or simply his mood. The techniques for this show what waiting would cost him, and the salesman is, if the gas or the electricity range is being offered presently cost 6,200 pesos, emphasize to them that the price of the gas range will be 8,000 next year. Then show the cost of delaying decision to buy will be 1,800. Then show the specific amount he can save.
Principles of handling objections. Number 1. Clarify the objections. A salesman, before answering any objections, should have a clear understanding of what the prospect means. And number 2. Classify the objections. An alert and smart salesman can detect the type of objections, which buying decisions are still to made in the salesman's favor. And next, I need. The buyer does not recognize any need, or that he does not want to admit the existence of a need. And next, product. The salesman can determine from the prospect's statement that the competing products are better. And next, source. From the prospect's statement, the salesman can sense that the lacks confidence and trust in the salesman. And the last, price. By carefully analyzing the prospect objections, the salesman can realize that he has not built up an acceptable amount of value of satisfaction for the price that is quoting.
I discuss all about the techniques of handling sales resistance. Number 1, when the salesman considers that the objection is not genuine, it is better for him to ignore it. But this approach should not be used when the prospect's objections are legitimate. Number 2, product comparison. If a prospect mentally comparing his product with the salesman's product, the salesman himself should present a complete comparison of the two. Number 3, case history. A salesman describes the experience of another prospect who is like the buyer to whom he is talking. He probably starts with the first registered resistance of the prospect. Then the prospect will later only discover the situation described is the same as his. Number 4, demonstration. A product's demonstration is a terrific convincing answer to a product objection. The salesman lets the product itself refute the buyer's composition. Number 5, guarantee. Giving a guarantee to the prospect that he cannot always make him react favorably. The salesman offers to refund amount the customers pay. If he is not satisfied, will always give the customer the assurance that there is no element of deceit of cheating in the claim of the product. Number 6, questioning. One of the salesman's job is to separate excuses from genuine objections. This could be done by proving for hidden resistance. Number 7, show what delay causes. The prospect usually delays the decision to act or to buy the product. The salesman can take pencil and paper to show the computation that the delay will be too expensive to afford. Number 8, admit and counterbalance. The prospect sometimes enumerates the disadvantage of the product. The salesman should agree that his product disadvantage. Number 9, friendly listening. It is a good practice to listen to the prospect. Once the buyer he talk himself out by unburdening what he has in mind. He is usually easy to handle. Number 10, point blank denial. It is a habit among people to resent being contradicted. 11, yes, but. The salesman makes a concession to the buyer, then the commands before making the correction. Number 12, admin ignorance. Frankness and honestly get attention from the prospect. But there must not be two answers is admitting ignorance. Number 13, trial. This is a good technique to convince the prospect of the product benefits. But giving the product for trial is a very risky practice for him film. Boomerang. Once in a while, the salesman can take the prospect reason for not buying and convert them into a reason for buying, motivating salesmen to close a sale. Someone once remarked, money the only form of motivation, but it may be far ahead of the whatever it is that is in the second place. Next is a basic rules. There are the 3 basic rules which must be considered setting up sales incentive and compensation. Number 1 is make incentive payments frequently enough to be effective. The mid-year and year-end bonuses may be substantial, but it may too late or less so far in the future that it has a little effect. Number 2, be up to date. Traditionally, the sales manager has considered the minimum effective incentives to be a 50% of the basic. But with the inflation and devaluation of the peso, the value has diminished the after-tax value of incentives. Number 3, stimulate sales selectively. An incentive scheme merely to stimulate closing just to increase the sales volumes may not always be good because the salesman is paid just for making the sales. Example, when to close a sale. The right time to attempt to close sale, it is when the buyer appears to be ready to buy. There is one psychological moment in the sales presentation which affords the best opportunity to close. That is, this opportunity to close the bypass the salesman may find it difficult to secure the order. When the salesman believes that the prospect understands the proposition and may be ready to buy, the right time has arrived. And using the trial clause, a trial clause is a question designed to elicit the prospect reaction without forcing him to make a yes or no buying decision. For example, Where will you install the air conditioner unit? Which size would you prefer? The timing of the clause.
Close a cell and timing of closing the cell. The right time to attempt to close a sale is when the buyer appears to be ready to buy. There is one psychological moment in this sales presentation which affords the best opportunity to close. That is if this opportunity to close bypass, the salesman may find it difficult to secure the order. When the salesman believes that the prospects understand the proposition and may be ready to buy, the right time has arrived. Using the trial clause. A trial clause is a question designed to elicit the prospect's reaction without forcing him to make a yes or no buying decision. Example: where would you install this air conditioning unit? Which size would you prefer? The timing of the clause. Number 1. When the prospects agree with the value of benefits described by the salesman. Number 2. When the prospects accept the salesman's answer to his objections. Number 3. When the prospects show some signals that he already sold on the product. Number 4. When there is a permanent pause. The fine art of closing the sales. Test of his selling ability. The true test of the selling of the salesman is can he secure orders. Salesman constitute the final yardstick by which a salesman will be measured.
Why salesmen have difficulty in closing sales? Here are some compelling reasons why. First, money is scarce and the salesman is pressed to sell quickly to generate cash flow. The earlier the close, the higher the profit. The cash flow statement is a financial statement that reports on a company's sources and usage of cash over some time. A company's cash flow is typically categorized as cash flows from operations, investing, and financing. Second, competition is intensifying with no sign of let-up. The salesman of is slack about closing runs a greater risk than ever of losing customer to a competitor. Developing a sound marketing strategy is about locating that intersection between that customer want and where an individual firm can create value better than its competition. It follows, then, that having a better scene than your competitor for what would create customer value is huge advantage. Third, customers are more selective and more resistant. Customer selection means defining the types of customers that a company will market to. It means identifying different groups of customers for which to develop offerings for and to target during acquisition, retention, and extension. Fourth, as business improves, selling plans held in abeyance a year ago have caused the loss of selling opportunities. Since the outsourced jobs were held by all-time regular employees, it was illegal for the club to terminate them and give the jobs to others. A clause for every occasion. 1. Clause in the get the order situations. First, the one-shot hit and run sales. This is the classical specialty sales call in which the salesman qualifies sales and closes on one call and almost never makes a call back. Second, the immediate clause for continuing purchases. In these situations, the salesman tries to get an order on his first call for some product he expects to continue to sell on future calls. Third, the sell something every call situation. The salesman calls on regular customers, usually with a broad product line. Fourth, the closing call following a series of preliminary calls. The high-ticket items and capital expenditures are often so complicated and so tailored to the individual prospect that many preliminary fact gathering and design tests. 2. Clause in which the orders are not the objective. There are many types of sales situation in which the salesman cannot possibly close in the sense of getting a signed contract. First, now or never clauses. This is where salespeople make an offer that includes a special benefit that prompts immediate purchase. For example, this is the last one at this price. We've got a 20% discount just for customers who sign up today. Second, summary clauses. Salespeople who use this closing technique reiterate the items the customer is hopefully purchasing, stressing the value of and benefits in an effort to get the prospect to sign. For example, so we have the centrifab washing machine with brushless motor, the 10-year comprehensive guarantee, and our free delivery and installation service. When would you be a good time to deliver? Third, sharp angle clauses. Prospects often ask for price reductions or add-ons because they know they have the upper hand and they also know you expect it. If you have approval from your sales manager to do so, try to sharp angle close technique to catch those prospects by surprise. Fourth, question clauses. To achieve these two foundation goals, it's imperative that reps ask prospects probing questions. Effective salespeople focus on closing a sale as soon as a conversation with a prospect begins. Through a series of questions, they develop desire in the client and eliminate every objection to purchase. For example, in your opinion, does what I am offering solve your problem? Fifth, assumptive clauses. This closing technique draws on the power of positive thinking. If you believe, from the first piece of email outreach, you will close this deal and can have an incredible effect on the rest of the sales process. Sixth, takeaway clauses. If you have kids, you've likely noticed if you take away from them, they'll want it more than ever. Use this similar psychological practice on your prospect. Seventh, soft clauses. The soft clause is a way to show your prospect the benefit of your product and then ask low impact questions to ascertain whether they'd be open to learning more. For example, if I could reduce widget maintenance by 25% and increase widget productivity by 15%, would you be interested in learning more? You have clearly stated the benefit without making any demands and sudden requests.
The fine art of closing the sales. Test of his selling ability. The true test of selling of the salesman can he secure the orders. Salesmen constitute the final yardstick by which the salesman will be measured. How to test the sales ability. For many small businesses, product sales provide the main source of income. Inspirational speaker and former CEO of Netscape, Jim Bardsdale, once said, "Nothing happens until someone sells something." Business success often depends on the sales ability of employees. Get a clear picture of your team's selling skills and test candidates by using different test methods. First testing method is the interview assessments. Personal interviews are a good way to measure salespeople's ability and learn more about their personal sales philosophy. You should begin an interview by asking who in the selling world inspires the person being interviewed and why. Team members that are familiar with top performers in the field will likely know something about sales. Also, ask questions about previous selling situations. For example, ask, tell me about the toughest objection you've ever overcome, or what products do you like to sell most? Number 2, role playing. Nothing gives small business managers a clearer picture of a team member's ability than role-playing. The role-playing technique immerses salespeople into likely situations and reveals their strengths and weaknesses. Before the role-playing test, create written scenarios to present to the group being tested. Have the salespeople pair up and have them switch roles after half the testing period. So each plays salespeople or each plays potential customer. Implement common objections into the scenarios like this is too expensive or this doesn't suit my needs. Observe and give guidance during the scenario or use the same scenarios individually with your salespeople, playing the potential buyer role and other helpful tips when the assessment is over. 3. Written sales test. Regularly, solid sales are achieved through a general knowledge of steps known as the selling process. Administering written tests will give you insight on what your staff knows. List the steps of the selling process out of order in written format and ask the salespeople to label them into the correct order. Include the greeting, overcoming objections, and qualifying in your list. Also, test sales staff's product knowledge by asking them a series of tests about your products or generally products in your field. Number 4. Review the numbers. Issue a sales challenge to the members of your sales team. A monthly, weekly, or quarterly sales challenge will show you who your top sellers are, will reveal low performances. Number 4. Review the numbers. Issue a sales challenge to the members of your sales team. A monthly, weekly, or quarterly sales challenge will show you who your top sellers are, will reveal low performers. A weak performance could be evidence of poor sales ability. Team members who aren't up to par should receive further training before they participate in any more sales challenges. Repeat the challenge after training and then review the numbers before and after. You should see an improvement in their ability. Why salesmen have difficulty in closing sales? 1. Money is scarce, and the salesman is pressed to sell quickly to generate cash flow. The earlier the close, the higher the profit. Competition is intensifying with no sign of let-up. The salesman who is slack about closing runs a greater risk than ever of losing a customer to a competitor. The scarcity clause commonly seen with online purchases that have a countdown timer. The scarcity clause involves putting a deadline on an offer, then it's gone. This type of clause uses the psychological technique of making someone feel like they're missing out. It's human nature to take action if we feel like we're missing out on something, and will often be that motivating factor that closes a deal. An example of a scarcity clause would be something like, this offer is only available for the next 3 days or until we run out of stock, and this stuff is selling out fast. Along with increased competition, many companies are getting closer than ever to their customers and prospects. The advent of modern messengers in particular has removed so much friction from the process of buying software. For a sales rep, live chat allows you to sell to 5 customers at once versus a single customer on a phone call or in a face-to-face meeting. Less widely acknowledged is that while you can sell to more people at once, live chat also allows the consumer to evaluate more solutions at once. As a rep, your job is both more interesting and more challenging as a result. Number 3, customers are more selective and more resistant. Consumers are not exposed to all information or messages in the marketplace. In other words, there is selective exposure. For example, you may watch CTV but not CBC television. As a result, you are not exposed to the broadcasting of CBC network. Because of selective exposure, it is important for
A
marketers
clause for every occasion. Clause in the get the order situations. Number 1. The one-shot hit and run sales. This is the classical especially sales call in which the salesman qualifies, sells and closes on one call and almost never makes a call back. Number 2. The immediate close for continuing purchases. In these situations, the salesman tries to get an order on his first call for some product he expects to continue to sell on future calls. Number 3. The sell something every call situation. The salesman calls on regular customers, usually with a broad product line. Number 4. The closing call following a series of preliminary calls. The high-ticket items and capital expenditures are often so complicated and so tailored to the individual prospects that many preliminary fact gathering and design testing. Number 2. Close in which the orders are not objective. There are many types of sales situation in which the salesman cannot possibly close in the sense of getting a signed cannot contract. Requisites for successful closing. Here are some of the required sites in closing which a salesman must observe. Number 1. Maintain a positive attitude. 2. Maintain control of the interview. 3. Allow the customer to set the pace. 4. Give the customer an opportunity to buy. 5. Keep some selling points in reserve. 6. Sell the right items in the right amount, creating opportunities to close.
Good day everyone. So today we will discuss the tactics and strategies of the close. All strategies and tactics employed by the salesman are directed towards the close. Especially, the close may be defined as the tactics used by the salesman to induce purchase or acceptance of proposition. So here's the specific closing strategies. First, direct. The salesman asks the prospect to buy, prescribe, recommend, or use his product as appropriate. Second, summative. The salesman recapitulates the point of agreement previously reached and thereby induce the buying decision. Third, assumptive. The salesman assumes an agreement has been reached. For example, he tells a purchasing agent, "I will your secretary to write up the order." This is appropriate when the salesman notes the commitment and decision-making are painful experience to other person. Fourth, demonstration. For example, the old age that saying believe still holds a true today in selling. The salesman closes by showing the product or equipment in use. It is strictly low pressure because it places a prospect in semi-controlled situation, which make it easier for him to make the buying decision. Fifth, positive choice. This method falls between the direct and assumptive method. For example, the salesman presents the prospect with 2 or 3 positive alternates and if they say, "Do you want A or B?" 6. Minor decision. For example, the salesman should try to build up a series of yes answer as a basis of the close. In this strategy, the salesman seek affirmation on the smallest possible decision that encompasses the full orders. This is usually used in selling big prices or big ticket consume items.
Number 7, challenge. With the dominant, self-confident, and innovative person, the salesman may close by offering the prospect the opportunity to score at first. There are times that a salesman is blocked by either the secretary or the purchasing clerk. to see personally the decision maker. Number 8, score. Sometimes this is referred to as a negative close. The salesman usually says, "This is what you are missing if you don't buy now." In this closing method, the salesman knows the disadvantage and discomforts of the delaying to act. Number 9, the contingent method. People are inclined to want something that they cannot easily acquire. The use of the contingent method is based upon the fact that uncertainty exists. A good example of this approach can be applied by an insurance salesman to this clientele. Number 10, standing room only or SRO. This method is effective when the products are rapidly consumed and the supply is limited. These are some of the situations where the strategy can be effectively used. Number 1, if an item is in heavy demand and only a few are left. Number 2, if the item is bargain and it cannot be recorded. Number 3, if the item is a sample or floor model and the price is unusually attractive. Number 4, if the item is last one in stock which will fit the customers. Number 5, if the item is the only one because it is sold. Number 11, two-man closed and the TO. This method of closing use two salesmen team up in an attempt to get an order. Some firms encourage their salesman to turn over the customer to another salesman if the close falls.
And how broke